May the words of my mouth, the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God. Amen. So I've always loved this story. Maybe it's because I like silly things, and I think this Bible story sounds like something you'd find in like a Monty Python sketch. Samuel keeps hearing this voice, goes to Eli, you called. Eli's like, it wasn't me. And then it happens again. Samuel goes to Eli, and I can just imagine Eli lying there thinking, I'm trying to sleep. Why do you keep bothering me? Right? And after the third time, Eli catches on that Samuel is not messing around with him, that God is probably the one behind all of this. And that is when Samuel is instructed to say, speak, for your servant is listening. And then God says, see, I'm about to do something that will make everyone's ears tingle. Of course, it's the Old Testament, so it's like a vengeance plan, but we're not going to get into all of that today. So why do I bring this story up today? Well, it's a call story in the Bible, and it's one that I relate to. When you ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? That answer usually changes a few times as they're growing up. What did you all want to be when you were a kid? Shout out some answers. A fireman, I think I heard. A marine biologist, that's cool. Did I hear ballerina? Anybody else? A nurse? Cool. If you asked me when I was 5, I would have told you a ballerina. In our 8th grade yearbook, underneath our picture, was where we were going to high school and what we wanted to be when we grow up. And mine said, Little Flower, veterinarian. Well, I didn't go to Little Flower, and thankfully I did not become a veterinarian because I'm very allergic to pets. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a dance therapist, but that dream died when my doctor told me I had to stop dancing because of my back problems. And I was really crushed because I wanted to do that. It combined my love of dance and my desire to help others. After that, I wanted to be a librarian because of my book obsession. But my undergrad degree was in communication. And I did an internship for a movie publicity company thinking, what better job can there be, right? When you're like 20 years old, what better job could there be than movie publicity? Part of my job was working press junkets and movie premieres. But I learned pretty quickly that it was not my calling when the crisis for the day was when a millionaire celebrity didn't get the sandwich they wanted, when there were unhoused and hungry people living right outside in the streets. And I felt like the wrong thing is the crisis here. Then I got an internship writing for News Spirit, our conference newsletter, which I still write for to this day. But that internship was the beginning of my call to ministry. At the time of that internship, I was very involved in my local church, and I worked part-time as church secretary. When I was trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do with my life, I thought, well, I love church, so maybe I can do communications for the church. So I reached out to the conference, and that's how I got my internship. That's actually also how I got the internship here. You guys were not looking for one. I went to Pastor Hawk and I said, I really want to intern here specifically. Can I please intern here? And you all were gracious enough to take me on. So anyway, the conference gave me stories to cover for News Spirit. And this is when I started getting those whispers of a call to ministry. This was the first time I heard God say, Julia, Julia. And I said, yes, I'll do PR for the church. And then I heard, nope, that's not it. Go lay back down. One of the stories that I was asked to do was to interview one of our newly ordained pastors. So I called Andy Krapata and I interviewed him about his ministry. And this is when the light bulbs finally started to flicker, and I thought, I don't want to write about what pastors do. I want to do it. And specifically, at that moment, I don't want to write about what Andy is doing. I want to do it. So I think it's a fascinating full circle moment that I'm following him here. But at that time, I used to put pastors on a pedestal, and I didn't think that I was good enough to be a pastor. And also, I just didn't see a whole lot of pastors that looked like me. And from the reactions that I still get as a 37-year-old woman in ministry, "You're the pastor?" People in general still don't see a whole lot of pastors that look like me. So I pushed aside the next whisper that was calling me to ministry. And then one day I was in the church office, and my pastor, Stan Kroll, and I were having another one of our theological discussions, and I'll never forget it. I was standing by the copy machine, and he said, "Have you ever thought about ministry? Because I think you'd be really good at it." And that was my "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening" moment. That is when I accepted that God was truly calling me to this. And you'll learn this about me. I know this is not always a popular thought. I am not an everything happens for a reason person. I know. But there were a series of events that followed that just had to have had the hand of God in them. I was the president of LaSalle's chapters of the National Society of Collegiate Scholars and their chapter of the Public Relations Student Society of America. I was on the dean's list every semester in college, and I could not find a job when I graduated. I could not even find an interview for a job. And all my friends were getting jobs, and I'm definitely not one to brag, but my resume was stellar, so I was very confused. And then that conversation happened with my pastor, and he said, "There's a summer internship program for people looking to explore their call to ministry. Let me look into it." And he gets back to me, and he said, "The deadline is next week." So we got in right in time. I did the internship that summer, and I knew this was exactly what I was meant to do. And don't worry, the stellar resume got me a full tuition scholarship to seminary. And, well, the rest is history. I wish I could say it's been all sunshine and rainbows, but I think we know that ministry is not that. It is difficult and sacred work. And sometimes I still ask God, "Are you sure about this? Do you know how it feels to be Lehman's first female senior pastor, and possibly the youngest, at least the youngest in a long time?" Part of me is so humbled and honored, and the other part is still shocked that I was chosen, that I was called to be here. And I still have thoughts like, "But other pastors don't look like me." But I keep showing up, and I keep answering the call. And you know, for all the reasons I sometimes feel insecure or different, I think those are the things that make God say, "See, I'm about to do something that will make everyone's ears tingle." Because I think God likes surprising people. I think God takes great joy in working in unexpected ways. And I think maybe I'm one of those unexpected ways. And maybe you are one of those unexpected ways. We are all called, maybe not to ordained ministry, but God puts a calling on all of our hearts. What call is God putting on your heart? Maybe it's surprising or unexpected. If you don't know what it is, let me be the one to invite you to go lie back down and get quiet and say, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." Because God is speaking. Listen in for that call and ask for clarity if you need it. Sometimes we generally know what God is calling us to, but we need some clarity. Like when the eye doctor pulls down the phoropter and says, "Better one or two," right? And sometimes we know right away, one. And other times you're like, could you do it again? I guess two, right? Discernment is like that too. Sometimes the choice is clear, and other times you really go back and forth with God, figuring out which way is best. Sometimes we need God to pull down the phoropter to help us see what is ahead. Because our calls can change, whether that's our career or how we participate in the life of the church. I recently went through a discernment process, and it ended up leading me here. Prayer can be our phoropter. Did you know that what that was called? Because I didn't. That could be our word of the day. You can impress your eye doctor next time you go. Or we can be like Samuel, lying in bed, waiting for God to speak. Or you can talk to a spiritual guide or friend or Pastor Nancy or I. I often find that really helpful because I'm more of an external processor. But whatever works best for you, however you listen best, I invite you to do it. Because in 2024, our lives are so filled with noise and information coming at us 24/7. It's easy to forget to listen for the voice of God. But when we listen and we answer the call, we glorify God. Amen? Amen. Amen.